So last year, I visited as an adjunct professor teaching astronomy and physics at McHenry University. So I have 25 adult-aged students, right, ranging from 20 to 40 years old. I asked them the exact same question on opening day of the class. Class, hi, it's great to be here. I'm excited to be your teacher. How many of you have ever looked up into the cosmos and just wondered about it and everything that it encompasses? How many hands do you think I got? 2. Did you hear this before then? No. Exactly. 2. Bam! I passed out, I blacked out. 10 minutes later, they're waking me up like, what just happened? I'm like, really? 2. So I had a little bit of epiphany there. I'm like, something that I took for granted about all human beings, right? Wasn't so for granted at all. So the 25 students and I set up on the next 6-week journey for the summer class. And what I'm pleased to say is at the end, when I asked them for their final presentation, what did you learn most in this class? And they said, for just the complete appreciation for how precious this Goldilocks opportunity, right? The right planet, the right place, the right point in time. You all have heard this before. For us to exist here on this earth, to be able to have this conference today and ponder our future and who we are and where we're going. And so I felt very proud of that, right? So we spent many nights laying in the cemetery there at McHenry University, watching shooting stars and things and talking about life. And to me, that was really the ultimate goal of the class. So, folks, we're here today, and I'd like to spend the next about 40 minutes or so talking to you about why solar makes sense for Illinois. Okay? Now, you all pretty much get that, right? If you allow me to go to the next slide, I kind of want to rephrase this a little bit. And I said, next slide. There we go. Solar makes sense, right? So why do I characterize it this way? Well, I've only been in the solar business for about 18 months. As you heard from Sarah say, I spent 23 years in the Air Force, retired out of Scott there, and live in Belleville right now. And so StraightUp Solar, where I work for, is originally St. Louis based. We have an Illinois office now, and part of my charter is to make sure that that all runs smoothly with a few other folks. And when I talk to people, right, who may not have any understanding of solar whatsoever, and you've got to kind of look, what I've discovered is that when you characterize it in terms of an investment, it is a long-term commitment, right? We know the components last 25 years and much longer, and people are in for this. But when you start explaining the context of what they understand in terms of other long-term investments, the gears start moving faster and faster in their heads and they start clicking, right? So it's just a matter of adding up your pennies and nickels day after day, year after year, and suddenly, after a small amount of time, you have something of real great value, right? So that's a little bit of a paradigm shift from where society seems to be going now. We have instant gratification, satisfaction, and those things. But you need to put people into that frame of mind, and then away we go, right? So let's go into this journey and talk about how the time that you have already invested in this industry and that you're about to invest, even more so in the coming years, maybe even more so as a result of this conference and the people you're going to meet and networks you're going to make. Let's see where we can take all of that. Now, obviously, I see Maria and I, Jen, big partners in making this happen. They were extremely desperate for guest speakers, I think, and so they found me. They did a search for people who have set solar in their lives, and they found me, and so I'm standing in front of you every day. So I said, are you sure? Are you sure, right? And they said, no, really, seriously, we have another budget, then can you drive yourself up? And then, no, they were great. They wanted me to come to dinner last night. And I said, I would be ecstatic, frankly. So I feel I have an obligation to kind of tell you why you're spending an hour of your life here listening to me and others. And hopefully you'll feel that there's enough credential to talk about that. As you know, I'm from Wisconsin, my wife and I both, so we're deep, true, dyed, blue Midwesterners, born and raised here. My parents immigrated from Germany back in the early 1960s because they came here for a better life. That's important because it really set the context of my American experience in terms of what we do as a nation and what we feel we owe as citizens to our country, right? To give back that societal, social debt and obligation. My dad said, hey son, you can have the tree farm. I said, no thanks Dad, I'm going to go off and see the world. So off I went to the Air Force Academy and spent the next 23 years. I was the last class without computers. Okay, proud to say that, slide rules and all that good stuff. And little Fortran and Pascal punch cards, right? Nobody remembers those. But I said I want to fly airplanes very badly, so what's the best thing to do is become an aero engineer, right? So I spent the next 5 years there and a year at grad school afterwards, and never designed a single airplane in my entire career. Okay, so but I gotta go fly, right? So off you go. But that's important because I think everyone understands, right? The discipline you're studying kind of sets how the logic circuits are so wired in your brain. So I look at life through the eyes of an engineer, right? Where when I have have a problem, there's a solution, there's a black and white set of criteria, a definite outcome, as opposed to maybe a lawyer or something like that who says, well, you know, the answer is multiple shades of gray, we can do all this kind of stuff like that. That's just me advertising fairly to how I view the world and how I look upon things. Being a pilot, of course, was very exciting. I got to see the world. Right? They said, Mike, you know, fighter plane, or you can go fly this KC-10 tanker. I said, I'll take the tanker. And I looked like I was crazy. I said, no, trust me, I know what I'm doing. And off I went to go see the world, and I wouldn't trade that for a bit. I mean, I cannot tell you how many different countries and places I've been have been in a state of war for 20 years. I didn't expect that when I signed up as Mr. 18-year-old kid, right? It was a Cold War at the time. But I appreciate that because that experience really made me understand what we have in this country and what others don't have in other parts of the world, right? When you go to a Middle Eastern country and you see a truck full of people from Bangladesh, right? That's their bus, the dump truck they're riding in the back, no seatbelts, anything like that. They've all left their families behind for 2 years at a time to make $300 a month, of which they're sending 280 of it back to their country, and it's a better quality of life than what they have back in their home country. You go, wow, maybe I should appreciate what I have, right? But then also understand what energy. I said, well, why do we have what we have in this country? Well, we have a lot of energy to do things that allow us to have a great quality of life. These poor people don't have energy. So what does that mean for us from a security standpoint, for market opportunities and those types of things? I had the privilege of being a leader squadron commander. I did a deployed command. I was the base commander at Air Force Base. We had 3,000 people under me, managing 15,000 people on the base for the nation's logistics, command and control. It was a privileged opportunity, but it really taught me a lot about how organizations work and how you get things done, right? So that's something to understand. Then I also spent a couple of years at the Pentagon. But before that, I was at the Air War College, where I had the neat opportunity to study at the Center for Strategy and Technology. What is that, right? Well, we spend the whole year looking at the influence of technology and how it's going to change the world. I said, wow. Oh, by the way, you have to write a master's on this. Master's, I said, oh, nuts, okay. What do I do on it? I think energy is kind of cool. Continue what's happening. Gas was shooting up to $140 a barrel. And lo and behold, the journey began. And frankly, it's at that point in my life where I had what I call my energy epiphany. Okay? You all have probably had it in your own lives. Once you have it, you know it. You can never get rid of it, okay? Because you can't stop thinking about it. But it really shaped the remaining time of my career, and it's what compelled me to enter the solar industry for phase 2 of my life, okay? And then you know a bit about working at McHenry, and then finally, this last piece, the solar immigrant, right? I think that probably makes most sense to you. You've all heard about the digital native and the digital immigrant. How many of you are solar natives? Raise your hand. Did you design the first solar cell? And then, okay, Brandon here's like, I've been a part of it. But that's important, right? But most of us are digital immigrants. Don't lose sight of that, right? Because just like America is so wonderful because of the diversity of people who come here with their own ideas and ambitions and drive, this is what makes solar so exciting. And I'm pleased to say, one of the biggest anxieties people who leave the military is, will they find the same kind of people, that cultural bonding that they left when they leave the military, right? That brotherhood and sisterhood. Sure, I have those same anxieties, but I was pretty confident that I'd find it in this group, and I'm pleased to say that I have. So you all have passed that wonderful test for me personally, so here we go, okay? So yes, and then like I said, so that was me then, this is me now, right? Go to work in Poland, so I didn't a solar module, but I do strategic development things, which no specific definition on that, just look at the future, solve problems, think about what's going to happen, and it's the best job in the world. We belong to the tribe down there at StraightUp Solar. So let's start talking about energy and solar and stuff. So what is the meaning of energy? What does it mean to you? I hope that when you're laying and looking at the stars at night, you were thinking about these kinds of things. This is right. It's my only hobby, right? So the physicist in me, an engineer, says, if I have energy, then I can do work, right? You guys all with me? Awesome. Work becomes services and goods, right? Goods and services make a quality of life. Quality of life equals happiness. Okay? Pretty easy. Another way of looking at it, we could say that energy also gives us mobility. Right? Think about the day when your car broke down, how frustrated and anxious you were. Mobility gives us freedom. Freedom gives us the pursuit of happiness. And so, I would say to you that energy equals the pursuit of happiness. If you don't have it, chances are you're not too happy. Not in all cases. You can be very happy living in a faraway, mountainside place with a cabin and those kinds of things, but at least for our modern way of life, think most of you would agree with that, right? Energy equals quality of life equals freedom equals pursuit of happiness. Okay, let's take this one step further. If energy equals the pursuit of happiness, then the freedom property of algebra, jeopardizing energy there also jeopardizes your future pursuit of happiness. And so, one of my favorite quotes of all time, you guys, what was the Professor Einstein's second paper that he wrote? That he won the Nobel Prize on?
Well, electric effect.
What was that?
Electric effect.
Exactly, right? Everyone thinks, oh, it was the EMC squared and everything. No, he got his Nobel Prize for describing and identifying the photovoltaic effect. No way. Right after World War II, as the war had ended and the bombs had been dropped, and which had been so critical developing, a reporter stopped and said, Professor Einstein, what is the greatest threat to mankind? The reporter was fully expecting an answer like, oh, you know, nuclear annihilation, those things like that. And about missing a beat, he stopped with the reporter and said, exponential growth. As a physicist and mathematician, you wouldn't expect anything less from him, because he's pondered and thought about it. He says, yes, humans just do not have the ability to comprehend and deal with exponential growth. It gets out of control faster than we have the ability to respond and react to it in most cases, right? So let's just look at this, this next chart, right? There, you all have seen something like this. Okay, here's world population, right? There's exponential growth. When did we start using all those trust fund, that solar trust fund called fossil fuels? Right about that same time. No surprise to me, you all know this. Okay? So, you ask yourself then, that last chart, the modern society, everything that's happened roughly in the last 150 or so years, what are the elements, what does it take to make a modern society? Well, first of all, you need resources. Okay? And I would argue with you, Mother Nature gives us all the resources we ever need for free. The last time I checked, the mass of the Earth is not changing appreciably on any given day. About 300 pounds of asteroids and meteorites and stuff hitting here. That came out wrong. Hitting here. I didn't mean to say that, but speaking one-on-one, just move on and ignore that ever happened. And we throw a few satellites into space, so the mass goes down a little bit, but by and large it stays the same. Right? Mother Nature, Earth Creator, gave us all our resources free. All we have to do is walk up there and collect them. Right? Okay? What else do we need? Well, we need imagination. Right? This desk right here, and this is part of the energy epiphany curse that I walk around with, this lens in front of my eyes. Most people look at this and say, here's a desk. But when I look at it and I see this, I see a tree in a forest. This is probably plastic that came from natural gas from somewhere, right? I look at everything now, it's a big pile of natural resources sitting there. And I say, somebody looked at that pile of natural resources and said, oh, this could be a desk someday. Wow, Shazam, right? So this is pretty neat. This is what is uniquely human, right? We have this wonderful imagination, okay? So what do we need to take the resources and combine with our imagination to create the things that we value? This conference room and everything else that we're enjoying today. It takes energy, right? So, we only attach value to those resources when we combine our imagination and energy to make the things that we value. And you've seen that here before. So then, the question is, are there limits to any one of these three things? Resources? Well, they're finite, so maybe. Depends how we use them. I'm sorry. Imagination, which is infinite, maybe. If the human population starts going down on any given day, the net sum amount of imagination will probably go back down again as well. And then energy. Well, this could be our choice. It's either finite or is it infinite? We're on that doorstep to make that decision. So, how many of you have read this book? I don't care if you agreed with it or not agreed with it, because there's that controversy. I read this about 5 years ago. I went into a deep funk, all right, for like a month, right? It was like, oh, we are doomed as human beings, right? And that was like a big turning point. I got to get out of this, right? We got to look for a better future. Jared Diamond, #1 bestseller, New York Times, and everything like that. He's a cultural anthropologist, wrote Guns, Germs, and Steel, and some other books. He looked back about 15 different civilizations in human history, from the Mayans, the Romans, the Japanese, Europeans, everything, and said, why did some succeed and others fail? Why are the ones that could build these phenomenal cities and things just suddenly disappear, right? And I would encourage you to read the book. Just know that you might go into a deep funk if you read it. But his premise was that society's success depends on one thing only: how you manage your resources. Okay? Those Easter Islanders out there with those big heads on the island, right? You've seen the pictures. Where did those things come from? Why are there no trees on it? Well, Jared Diamond goes back and says, the island was covered with trees in the beginning. But the islanders got into a statue race, right? The three sub-tribes, and they all tried to outdo each other. And they cut down, we all read the Dr. Seuss book, right? The Lorax, right? You have to wonder, was that the islander chopping down the last tree going, this is going to make a great statue, you know, and never mind, there's any trees left in the island, and they all left, right? In Japan, when the emperor was facing deforestation, he nationalized all the trees around the year 1000 and said, the next fool who cuts down a tree, I'm cutting him down. He chopped down about 50 folks, the word got out, and Japan recovered, right? And that's the kind of the difference that you raise in the book. But the point is, how we manage our resources is going to influence heavily on our future destiny. So, part of my energy epiphany is coming to this realization that in our modern world, the one we and I all live in, energy is an engineered abstraction. What do I mean by that? Okay? By design, citizens of modern societies become disconnected from the physical properties or aspects of energy and fuel. First example, there's an outlet right here, right? Where those projectors on. Does anybody think when they plug that outlet in there that it's connected to a coal plant 200 miles away and they push toast, their nice crispy toast in the morning and get ready for it, that I just burned a pound of coal somewhere far, far away? No. You aren't programmed to think that way. Okay? One could say by design. How about cars, right? Anybody fill up gas this morning? Can't at this price, right? Wow, you guys pay for a lot of extra gas up here. Think about a Model T Ford, right? Go to the old filling station, you talk to the nice guy, he came out to you, said, how much you want? I want 5 gallons, all right? You pumped it up, just like that. You fill up, that's a little glass bowl at the top there, right? You got to see the gas up there, and it poured down by gravity into your tank as he was talking to you, so you saw something moving, something going into your thing. Then what did you do next? You reached into your wallet, and you took out cash, and you handed him $1 or whatever it was, right? But that's $1 that you weren't going to have anymore as a result of your decision to put gas in the car and drive around, right? There's a transfer of something given, something lost in that process. And so we have a sense of consumption. But what do you do today, right? A little gauge in your car says, hey, you should pull into the filling station sometime. Go, okay, I will. You pull up, right? You put the thing in, you swipe it. A few numbers change. I'm not seeing anything moving, just the numbers, right? You're done. You go. In my house, I don't pay the bills. My wife just automatically does it all with the bank and everything like that. I don't have a sense of consumption. I just like to keep driving, right? Just drive, right? But that's the way our world works now. The question is, can we still afford to do that? And so today, nothing disappears as a result of our consumption. So let's pretend that you popped up on a new planet and you had the opportunity to define the energy structure on that planet, right? Wishful thinking, but when you're like starting out with the stars, you can think these kinds of things. So, following wood, coal, and oil, the fourth energy must have a few particular attributes. Number one, it must be non-depletable. Makes sense? It must be environmentally clean. It must be continuously available, right? If I can only have energy 4 or 6 hours a day, useful, but not as useful as it should be. Is it in a usable form? In other words, if I have to go and change its shape and form and dig it out and move it around and do a million things to it first, before it, that's just a lot of energy, right? The last barrel of oil that come out of the ground will be the one where it took almost a barrel of oil to get it out of the ground, right? The first few, we just poked holes in the ground, the stuff shot out of the ground, and this is too easy, right? But it's not the case always. And then finally, it must be low cost. Remember those workers I told you about in Middle Eastern countries, right? I mean, if they can't get access to the energy, then we really haven't moved human civilization to the next level. There will be conflict and resource wars and those things. So, if you were to put your options on a chart, and I will say I stole this from my old days when I was running around talking about space-based solar power. You'll see space-based solar power comes out solid green across the bottom, right? That's by design. But I'll talk to you about over lunch if anyone wants to have a share cup of coffee about that. Spent way too much time on that. It's really quite exciting. But if you had your choices, I'm sorry, this laser needs a little help. If you had your choices, there are pros and cons of each. And this used to be no over here, but now, with new technologies and opportunities, soon, right? People are really seriously starting to talk about this. And so this intermittency, when we say, day-night clouds, right? But the sun does come up every day, it does provide energy, and you can mitigate those types of things. So this is all shifting. So what would you choose, right? Would you choose what we have now for our energy paradigm, or would you choose something different, knowing what we all know now, right? A question you need to ask yourself. Okay, so I would argue that with enough energy, right, if we had something that satisfied all those criteria, we can meet all of our needs. This is Maslow's hierarchy. Everyone took Psych 101, right? You all get this. Food and water, and all the way to self-actualization and self-esteem. I mean, if we can take care of all the other more rudimentary problems in our world, then we have more free time and more energy and intellectual imagination capacity to do with the really neat things that we want to do as humans, right? But that we never seem to be able to get around to because we're too busy dealing with our human condition. And so I would say, see it says MJH, we really don't have a shortage of energy, right? The sun is producing plenty of it for us. Really, we just have an acute shortage of solar modules right now. And so what I found is the new modern version of it. True? True? Okay, that's what I thought. So you all can affiliate with that. So the first thing we need to do is start with why. And who has heard of Simon Sinek? Anyone? Okay. Shannon's raising her hand. Okay. After I introduced Simon, she's like, oh, I can't get nothing. That's great. So here's Simon. Okay. And he wrote a book called Start With Why. I met him about 3 years ago. #1 bestseller. I encourage you to go to TED Talk. Spend the 15 minutes with him, and it will really make an impression upon you. Sorry, I said here's the book. Come on, clicker, work with me. Work with me. There we go. Okay. And just for happenstance, he started working with us in the Air Force, and I got to meet and talk to him in person on several occasions. He loved what he was doing so much we adopted him and basically took him to Afghanistan for a week, and he had a blast, right? And he came back and says, wow, I didn't realize what everybody here all does. But what Simon's whole book is about, the whole 18-minute TED Talk, is that those organizations that focus on why they exist, rather than the what they do or how they do it, are the ones that ultimately are many times more successful than those that try to put the cart before the horse. In other words, the first thing you need to do is understand why you're doing what you're doing. Once everyone's on the same sheet of music, then you can go about creating the right set of what's and hows that will make you success, right? So, Apple. Apple doesn't exist to create telephones and all that kind of stuff. Apple exists to change the human experience. They don't encumber themselves with the what and the how. That comes later. First, they have the vision to change the world. Elon Musk is out there creating electric cars and going to space, creating a whole commercial space industry and a whole solar industry because he wants to create, it's great business model, great business stuff, right? But the point is, when you read the articles about him and why he's doing it, he's trying to create a better world, a better future for us. The cool thing is that the what and the how are so awesome in terms of fulfilling his why that everyone's on board and say, let's do this faster, right? So that's the point here. So here's the question. For this conference, why are we all here? To my understanding, this is the first time all of you as a separate organization has come together, right? Well, I gave the good professor, I gave our three organization leads some homework on Friday. I said, hey guys, tell me in your own words, and I'm not going to share with you other parties, why your organizations are here in this. And they said it all back. And I mashed it around and I came up with one big answer. These are my words, taking the best parts of theirs, okay? You can read it. I'm going to make it easy for you, right? Here are the key parts. Uniting, passion, advancing beyond its current paradigm, dedicating themselves to sharing resources and everything to lead the citizens of Illinois to propagate a local and sustainable energy future aimed at rebuilding their communities' economies, enhancing their environmental resiliency, and restoring the land of Lincoln as a beacon of innovation and vibrancy in this country. And that's a footnote. We all live in Illinois, right? We understand Illinois gets a bad rap sometimes in the bigger picture. Why not give Illinois an opportunity to do something that does this seem like it resonates with anyone?
I think that deserves an applause.
I applaud our leaders to the homework assignments because I had no idea what this would be until they gave me that answer. So I appreciate your response, right? That if this is on a similar frequency to what you came here expecting and why you're in this business, then that's good news, okay? So, all of you that nodded and clapped, hang on. I'm going to ask you, what's the most important part about this? Lead. Right? Why are we here? To lead. I joined the Air Force to be an engineer and pilot, nothing more sophisticated than that. Once I got into business, I said, holy cow, leading people is infinitely more complex and hard than any of this technical stuff, right? I don't care if you're the best engineer in the world, if you can't communicate or convince people to see your point of view, good luck. And so, one thing I learned over that time was that the leader's job is really very simple, to do two things. To provide atmosphere and to provide resources for the people that they lead. Atmosphere is a broad term. It can mean a lot of different things. What I do know is that if you're a good leader, you are never not exhausted. Okay? Because if you solved yesterday's problem, you can't just sit around and say, oh, that was cool, I'm done. No, you're moving on to the next one, right? And you're always thinking 8 moves ahead. Because you've got people all in play at the exact same time. And if there's people around you that don't see all those moves, you've got to help them see and understand that. Okay? You have to help them see strategically and all the bits and pieces that come together to create change. You guys with me on that? Okay? But history shows that those leaders who are willing to take the big risk and do the big innovation, you know, the Henry Fords, the Bill Gateses, the Steve Jobses, and not probably the Elon Musks of the world, they're not afraid to lead. Okay? And that's what distinguishes them. So the question you have to ask yourself is, what part am I willing to play in this leadership role? So here's some solar data. This is such good news, right? So you all have read, this is straight off the SEIA webpage. You know, 4.7 megawatts, 13 gigs, 140,000 solar installations. We have about 140,000 people involved in the solar industry. So hey, there's a correlation, 1 for 1, right? That's something interesting. More solar in the last 18 months, in the last 30 years. $14 billion of PV installation in the country last year. You know, in 7 states, solar was the only thing added, including Illinois and Missouri. That's pretty interesting, I think. Right? We shouldn't lose sight of that. And prices fell right on schedule, 15% last year. Right? Dropping half every 4 years. That's how the Moore's Law of solar. Don't know how long it can keep going on, but it's out there. And this year, we're looking really good at it. Right? Another 26-30% in residential is where it's at, supposedly. Everyone knows this chart, showing every billboard in every city, but it's great, right? Exponential growth. This is the good side of Einstein's quote, right? Exponential growth. This is something that we're making happen. So let's look at Illinois, okay? So this is just, we got to do some fact checking and let us understand this. So we have 2,100 people. Unfortunately, we only installed 2 megawatts last year, right? So I'm going to check to make sure my data's right. I pulled it right off the websites and everything like that. This is only 0.04% of the whole nation's right here in Illinois last year. Okay, we can't ignore or deny the fact that this is what they are. We just need to accept that and say, all right, that just means that's a starting point. Now where do we want to be, right? We got 48 megawatts installed, invested $6 million, and prices dropped 10%. Now I told you that I live down in Belleville, and so I go across the river a couple of days every week, and it's kind of interesting. What struck me in my first 2 months of working, there's a big solar wind system in Missouri. Solar desert in Illinois where I go to every day. And I said, how can I get this for my fellow Illinoisans, right? How can I take what's happening here and do that? So let's look at the stats from Missouri. 2,800 people, 28 megawatts last year, 39 currently installed, so not quite as much as Illinois, but Illinois's got a few 10, 20 megawatt size projects right out of that 48. $115 million last year. Illinois was what, 6? Huge increase, right? And prices have dropped 18%. So if I put that next to each other, sorry, I'll click through this all, right? Because I think we installed 30 megawatts last year, so we went backwards. It's unfortunate. But we know why, right? Missouri and Illinois have great vision for their future. Both have great RPSs and those kinds of things. It's just that unintentionally, Illinois has stumbled a little bit in the execution, right? We know the aggregation law and other things came along and other priorities came along. But that's okay. And I'll tell you why it's okay in the next slide or two. Because you don't necessarily have to be the early adopter. There's some benefit in waiting a little bit. And I think that's what we have to seize upon here in Illinois. Right? Take the lessons and the mistakes others have made and roll them into some real neat opportunities for us. And just out of curiosity, you know, EIA says we use 200 million megawatts hours of electricity every year in Illinois. It's 44% higher than the national average per person. But our prices are so much lower that we only end up paying 2% more total for that energy. That's a disconnect that's going to resolve itself by a course of natural something at some point here real soon. So, but if we did that 200 million megawatts and we tried to get to the 0.6% solar mandate for 2016, you'd have to install almost a megawatt a day, right? So this is just a theoretical exercise. No one will running off with these numbers and saying, oh, I'm going to change our whole business plan based on what Mike Hornitschek said. Okay, it just understand. I want people to understand the scale of where Illinois has to go for its citizens to realize its solar potential that other states and other nations are much further along, right? There's already 4 or 5 countries in the world that are at good parity for commercial solar in their countries. We have 4 or 5 states in this country that are already at good parity. In Hawaii, 32 cents a kilowatt hour. I have lots of friends there. Holy cow, right? You pay for a solar system in 2 years, and then you can add a battery backup system and pay it off in another 2 years, and you'll be off the grid in 4 years flat. So long, utilities. Ouch. That changes somebody's paradigm a lot. Now that's an extreme case, but it's just a matter of time, right? We know how the charts and numbers are going. So, the solar plan in 2014, right? We just did the home show in St. Louis. Talked to a lot of people, probably like 600 people. It was really neat, right? And so, here's what we got, right? They get solar now. You don't have to convince them that solar works anymore. I think that is passed. The environmentalist was a traditional early adopter, right? We all know that. They're willing to pay a premium. But now the fiscal conservative is getting involved because they say, hey, this really makes financial sense. It makes sense. Right? The independence mind, right? The person who wants to not be beholden to somebody else for anything that's a critical part of their livelihood or lifestyle or anything like that. Right? Solar gives them some great, remember I said, energy equals freedom. Right? So this is important. And more, the working men and women. How many times you over hey, solar just for rich people? Okay. Well, the prices are changing and coming down, and the trajectory is that pretty soon. I mean, there was a time when the Model T was too expensive for anyone else to afford, right? Now it's like, hey, if you don't have 3 or 4 cars in your garage, or your 15-year-old doesn't have a brand new car, something's wrong with you, right? I mean, that's an extreme example, but the point is, this will come. And mostly he or she is simply smart. The point is, they may be ignorant about the details of solar, but when you give them the data and the information, the gears turn quickly. And they're like, this makes sense. Okay? So, my whole point of sharing this is that the condition is set for us as an industry to do some really good things in the state of Illinois. At least from my Hornitschek perspective. And why is some of this, and why is it happening? Because I call it the convergence. Right? So we got a lot of neat things happening at the same time. If you waste countless hours a day like I do reading all the blogs and the news postings, right? Energy efficiency conservation, storage. And not just storage, but on-site cogeneration, right? Like natural gas generators and things like that, that now take the energy away from the centralized owner and put it in the hands. And this is what technology, that's one thing the Center for Strategy and Technology taught me. Over time, technology takes capabilities that were once reserved for only the most capable institutions or organizations and puts it in the hands of the smallest actor, right? This is the big lessons of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, right? Terrorists now can have the same kind of near capability that nations used to have, right? Get a dirty bomb, go off, take out a city. That used to only be something that the U.S. and the Soviet Union could do. So people now can maybe do that with the right resources. Electric vehicles. That's a picture of my Volt, by the way. We brought it home. My wife has not driven either of our Hondas in the 10 months that we've owned it. She said, we're never going back. The paradigm has shifted in her mind. Okay? Pretty cool. Literally, I never get to drive unless I'm doing an errand for her. So, and then here's something else that I was involved with, and this is kind of a little bit more of a stretch. It's not a stretch, it's a little further in the future. When I was working at the Energy Security Task Force, there still is a lot of concern about energy security, but if anyone here is an organic chemist or anything like that, you understand you can take carbon, hydrogen with the right set of processes and catalysts, and you can create the most complex hydrocarbon chain in the world that you want, right? It's just what Mother Nature does, just in a different way. And you can take raw electricity, you can combine it with water and CO2, which we have plenty of, right? And these are all separate processes. I can create hydrogen, I can create methane, I can create methanol, I can create gasoline, I can create jet and diesel fuel, all that kind of stuff, right? So imagine if I have an excess of renewable energy on site, I can either store it around as a battery that is hydrogen, or I can add some carbon to it, and I can turn it into methane. The same thing the nation has a huge infrastructure for already. I can either burn it on site at night, or I can sell it, net meter it right back to somebody else who needs my methane. Okay? I mean, this is all just a matter of time before we just get it to sale. And then what connects it all? The smart grid, of course, right? We have the convergence happening upon that. And then what's the last piece that I don't have up here? Financing. Right? A lot of new exciting financing. As a society gets bigger and faster and more modern, the ability to amass capital and capability is just so light and fast nowadays, right? Someone has a good idea, everyone races billions of dollars, race off in that direction. That's one way, but what about the micro-investor? Right? The solar mosaics or the community solars and those things. I would think that's just as exciting, if not more so, right? Than what some of the big financial opportunities are. Okay? So this convergence of taking this new client of 2020. I'm sorry, I'm gonna head one slide. So, we used to think it's just the choir that knows all about solar, but there's some really bigger, important actors and entities coming around this world that are saying the same thing. Sorry. Just last week, Citigroup, the age of renewables has begun. Solar and wind are competing with fossil fuel in the United States. Coal for sure, now natural gas in some places. How much longer, right? Natural gas price went up about 50% last year, I think, a lot of places. What does that mean? I think we have some understanding of that. Next one, Morgan Stanley. The tipping point in years for banning the utility and going off grid due to falling solar and battery storage. 240 gigawatts of solar potential in the next 5 years. These are people who didn't walk, they're solar immigrants too, okay? But they come from a financial and analysis background. And they're looking at the data, they're looking at the facts and going, wow, if we never have to pay for the fuel, this makes for a really, really good investment, right? We'll pay some people to figure out how to put it all in place, things like that, but we need to let people know about this. And then NRG, I think you all guys know about that, right? One of the biggest wholesale energy providers, really starting to shift the paradigm, right? Their CEO, David Crane, article last, 2 weeks ago, there is no Apple, Google, Facebook, or Amazon of energy today, okay? You understand what that means. And he's like, somebody needs to be, and that needs to be my company, perhaps, right? And so, in his own words, our kids will hold us accountable if we don't do something like this. That's the best thing in the world, right? These people, these leaders who have kids of their own. That's why I got in this, because when I wrote my master's thesis, and it's called War Without Oil, a Catalyst for True Transformation, realizing what would happen if the military and the world didn't have energy, I said, wow, it's the single biggest thing that's going to prevent my children, my 2 teenagers right now, in their 100-year lifespan, which is what I'm hoping they'll live to be, right? From enjoying an equal or higher quality of life than our generation and our parents' generations. This sudden potential shortage of energy. And it took us 150 years to build the energy paradigm that we have today. Can we transform it in the next 10, 20, or 30 years? That is the challenge that we have, right? So, know what we know now? I postulate there'll be 2 types of clients, solar in the 2020 and beyond. First is the on-grid. They're going to buy wholesale utility. I'm running out of Schlitz here, guys. Hold on. It's almost empty. 2 types of renewable energy when you say solar. Wholesale utility, because utilities all around the country are now starting to figure out, wow, I can install this pretty cheap. DOE Sunshot says 2020, the industry is saying by 2018, $1 a watt, right, to install utility scale solar. Residential, $2 a watt. Commercial, $1.50. Peanuts. Or community shared solar, which is really so cool. We all been on that. Base load will come from a renewable blend of energies, wind, solar, and that, or utility scale storage. You'll be able to opt in for that. You get your base load. I'm sorry, I clicked twice. So the question is energy security. That's so important to me, right? So how do we secure that? Well, I'll either have my own storage unit at the house, the little refrigerator size or small unit in the basement. I make synthetic fuels or on-site natural gas generation. That's not really truly going off the grid, because in my opinion, you're still on somebody else's natural gas grid, but it separates you from the electric. And remember my EV thing? They'll all be driving solar electric cars. Okay? This off-gridder will be off the grid. Their base load is going to be all on-site at their point of use. Energy security is inherent because they manufacture all their own. They'll do this kind of thing. Or they say, you know what, I really want to be up there, but I'm not too sure. I'm just going to pay an emergency service hookup. I'll pay a lot for it, maybe $1 a kilowatt hour, something like that, because it's going to be used so rarely. But when it's needed, I want to be able to have it, right? And maybe that's what it'll be. And this is all about the utilities which provide solar electric cars too. So here's just a quick investment calculator. Don't hold me to the nth decimal point on this. You know, these are some of the similar prices that we're seeing here. This is the oops, I'm sorry. This is the DCO rebate that Lane's office is putting out, 30% federal tax credit. You run it through 10 cents, 11 cents thermal kilowatt hour. I mean, you're talking about 6 cents a kilowatt hour. By the way, this is amortized over 25 years. I think that's fair. Because the coal and nuclear plants that you get your 10, 11, 12 cents for is paying off a 50-year mortgage. If you ask them to pay it off in 10 years, guess how much your utility rate would be? $1 a kilowatt hour, something like that. You'd have a whole different lifestyle, all of us, right? So the point is, you do that, you say, holy cow, I'm already at the tipping point. And I can 9% investment, 10-year payback. things are looking great for a system that's warranted for 25 years. Okay? Oh, by the way, we're finally at the point where you can, with a 4% or so mortgage, you can install a solar array on your house, and the first month's extra mortgage increase is going to equal the same amount of energy it would cost if you bought it from the utility. And because it's a fixed sum for the full 30 years, and energy rates go up on average 5% a year, guess what? You're going to save $20,000, $30,000, okay, over the course of that mortgage for doing it that way. Oh, by the way, solar EV, right? 2 cents a mile. This is my boss and I. So a month after I bought the Volt, he's like, Mike, I gotta get me one of those. I'm like, well, just go get one, right? So he shows up with a, he does a black Volt all the time. I don't know why. It just sucks up all the sunlight. It's so, but anyhow, but there we are. We're sitting with our V Volt, 2 cents a mile. How many of you drive electric cars? Anybody here? Okay. Anybody charging with solar yet? Yes, no, a few. So were you prepared for the incredible sense of liberty and guilt-freedness, I'll use that term, that you felt the moment you started driving that car? Right? The one thing, my wife and I, we bought this car, and thank you, Illinois, DCO, or 10% rebate, that was definitely helpful. But I anticipated, but didn't really fully appreciate it until it actually happened. If we wanted to spend a day in St. Louis in the Accord, it would be $10 on gas. It's 80 cents in the Volt. Right? So we're like, hey, let's just go. Right? I mean, the kind of freedom that maybe people had in the 50s when gas was 20 cents a gallon, you just drove wherever we want, you didn't care about those kinds of things. For me, it's about the environmental freedom, for my wife, the financial freedom, but it works great for both of us. Right? And more people are getting this. And it doesn't take a long conversation to have someone see that, especially when you show them the financials. If I get the next slide to show up, I took it out, never mind. Anyhow, it shows how, you save $1,500 a year, and you pay for the solar array in about 5 years. I run the numbers every which way I can. It works out about that. Ditch your Accord, get an electric car, and you'll start, being carbon-free, guilt-free, and very happy. So what do we do? Well, don't do nothing, right? Let's use our diversity to our advantage. See this gentleman right here? That's Matt. Okay? Matt was a third-generation Southern Illinois coal miner. Okay? About 2 years ago, he was working his third shift. The mine said, son, man's down, sorry, gotta let you go. I said, oh, what I have your wife. So, sorry, son, gotta let you go, okay? I do that. Packs up the car, drives to St. Louis, bumps into our company. We like what we see, we hire him. And so now he's working on a solar roof for 2 years, and we'll never go back, right? I share that because I understand the pride and the affiliation that comes from doing something that is multi-generational. We've had coal miners for 500 years, but several hundreds of years, right? I mean, this goes 10, 12 generations deep. Of course, there's a lot of pride in that. Imagine 10 generations of solar installers, deep pride. 80,000 coal miners in this country, 140,000 solar professionals already. Where's it going to go? And guess what? Matt will never go back to be in the mines. Okay? His biggest risk now is falling off of a roof, maybe getting a little electrocuted, but he hasn't done that yet. He's a smart kid, he's good, and he's always happy, right? So it's all good. But yeah, that's Matthew's son. The St. Louis Dispatch did actually a really nice story on him about that whole thing, and I said, we should send it to USA Today. I think they would like that. Incentives are imminent, right? We all know about the RPS fix. We've got to get it in front of the legislature. We've got to get them to pass it. That's, foot stomp, but it's one of the most important things that we all need to do. Not just ourselves, but everybody we know needs to bombard Springfield, right? And get that change in place. Because, I forget, what's it, like $60 million already in the fund that's been accumulating, but it's sequestered because of the aggregation rules and that this technical fix, no-cost technical fix is supposed to happen. That's the number one thing. We need to make sure that happens. So
Solar Lobby Day.
There you go, Solar Lobby Day.
Solar Lobby
30th.
Day. I'm Casey. I'm with the Illinois Solar Energy Association. I would like to personally invite all of you to join us on Solar Lobby Day, April 30th, right? April 30th. So we really need to fix that. Sorry.
Thank you, Casey. I was with Casey on the last one last year, and it's an experience. And sorry, running down the halls, right? You need a really big rig at the end of the day when you're done with that, because it's just amazing, right? So see the later adopter and the deregulation opportunity. I'm in Missouri, and I know we're at 7 o'clock. I've just got a couple more slides. With literally 2 more, and we're done. Missouri, where I live, is a full monopoly, right? Delivery and production. Illinois is deregulated, right? You don't get to choose your delivery agent because they have the wires and stuff, but you get to choose who you buy it from. Wow, does that open up a I mean, yes, it's a complicated hornet's nest of things, but it gives you so many options and opportunities to do things that you can't do where the structure is different, right? And there are other states out there that are further ahead than we are in trying to figure this out. But in the next slide, we'll talk about this. What can we do? Innovative policies and business models. Are we necessarily going to invent the 75% efficient solar cell here in Illinois? Well, maybe the folks at Urbana-Champaign will come up with something, or somewhere else like that. It's always going to happen. But in the meantime, the rest of us, right, can work on these policies and business models and things that work great for our state and get that solar out there as quickly as possible. And if we do it right, somebody else will notice it and adopt it somewhere else. And we're not doing this alone, right? You've got NREL, you've got SEIA, you've got all these other states, and that's the beauty in this internet Maslow's hierarchy need world, that we're all talking to each other, which is really the most important thing. And that's something that a diverse group of people can pull off, because they need to talk to each other. They help each other's strengths and weaknesses, cover those, and move this forward, right? And then lastly, we need to set the example by working together. Okay? We can't have individual camps out here and do that kind of stuff, because if we do, united we stand, divided we fall, you've heard that whole kind of thing. I'm told that the whole rest of the country is watching Illinois, right, to see how we sort this thing out, and they're just going to swarm in here and tell us how to do solar. I would probably cry if that happened, right? I'm proud to be in Illinois, even though I'm from Wisconsin. I've been here since 2000, I guess. And so let's chart our own destiny. Let's take control of this and do what's right for ourselves and for our citizens and the folks that we feel that we serve. Okay? So imagine the possibilities. I would love in my town of Mascouda, where my kids go to school, and Mascoutans are very proud of their community. If we all got together and we all pitched in $100, $200, and we own a piece of the solar array on the school. I'm going to try and do that. Okay? Good. I'm going to try and do that. Unlimited public solar production rules, right? In other words, if you're a school district or a municipality or something like that, and it's area of the world, hey, why can't I, be part of my own cooperative and just, I've got some open land and rooftops and stuff like that. I'm going to produce as much energy as I can. I'm going to make the policy and process easy. And if I make extra, it's okay to sell it and generate an income stream for my cash-strapped organization. There's a school in Tennessee, in coal country, net zero building. They put 380 megawatts, or no, that seems a lot. Solar, that's a lot. They put a big solar array on there. After the first year, they got a check from the utility for $40,000. What school district gets a gift like that? Imagine, that's a paradigm shift, right? Instead of begging for money every year, yeah, I got cash, what do you want? You want it in the athletic program? You want it in the music program? What do you want? It's in our hands. We can do that if we want, right? Affiliated organizations aggregating demand and organize with virtual net metering. After we get the RPS fix done, virtual net metering is probably the next most important thing, right? Or just virtual net metering. Why should we constrain by physical on-site? It's somebody's rule that they made up. Why does it have to be that way? We have the capability and the technology to do that now. Imagine this. If you're a utility, your biggest fear is that my invested legacy systems on those 50 or 80-year mortgages are going to become obsolete before they're payable useful life cycle. Well, what if we create a win-win for the utilities and say, okay, we will harvest some of this benefit from the solar and use it to pay down as a gift to the utilities. And don't quote me on that term, right? But you see what I'm saying? We're talking about funds transfer. We're so interested in getting rid of the legacy because of all these X, Y, and Z reasons. We'll have to do that. And that way you can face your investors and not say, well, I made a bad investment decision. I made a great decision. By the way, I'm putting in a bunch of solar now because it's the smartest thing to do. Right? Streamlined solar benefaction. I can think of a better thing if you're a philanthropist to say, hey, organization, here's a bunch of solar. I'm going to put it in now. Guess what? I just gave them a gift that keeps giving for the next 30 years. Very smart. Aggregation towns, picking solar as their cheapest options. All these small farm towns in Illinois, they deserve to be part of this as well. Oh, I'm sorry, but I meant aggregation, right? How many 300 towns are aggregating now in Illinois? So imagine, and they go shop for the cheapest energy, and some go 100% renewable, or some mix. But imagine if we took it all up, and in 10 years, the cheapest, no kidding option is just straight up solar. And, no, that's fine. I didn't mean that. But they just said, hey, there's no decision process anymore. It's the cheapest thing. We're just going to go towards it, right? And we'll buy whichever comes from whatever source. Empty brownfields, no more. Tens of thousands of Illinois jobs, right? Take 2,100 and turn it to 20,000 or 30,000. That's great for the electricians. It's great for the families. It's great for the manufacturers. It's great for everyone. And imagine Illinois as a net energy solar energy exporter, like some states are wind energy exporters. Okay? So, folks, coming to the end. Sort of we'll be able to do these things. Collaborate, advocate, create change, which will be known as the Great Historic Energy Transition, maybe someday. But most importantly, we'll create a sustainable future. Okay? So folks, I hope that these last 45 minutes kind of helped you understand at least one guy's perspective and why I think solar makes sense for the state of Illinois. And why I personally am dedicated to the second half of my professional life trying to make this happen, whatever way I can, right? Whether it's within StraightUp Solar and all the good folks there, or whether it's working collaboratively with a group of folks like yourselves, or anything. And maybe if we all just work together, put aside a lot of differences, and understand the real why that we're here, this should all fall into place. We should be able to move forward. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for your time. I appreciate that. Good luck in the rest of the conference today. I look forward to
Hello. We do have time for some questions. So if anybody has some, you can, and if you need the mic, I can bring it to you. You can enunciate and just speak really loud for it.
Okay, I want to press you on your price calculation, okay? You did a calculation for us saying it makes sense based on the installed cost of $2.25 a kilowatt, and then you put on the state rebate and tax credit and so on, okay? Okay, if I read the Wall Street Journal, it tells me that the national average for an installed solar system is $5.25 a kilowatt. That changes the math quite a bit.
It absolutely does.
So defend your $3.25, please.
Piece of cake. So if you went to the SEIA.org site, I don't know if that website we put up, but somebody help me out. $2.59. $2.89 is the national aggregated or average solar install price. So weighted average, right? So that's between utility and everything like that. That price I gave you is right in the wheelhouse of what our company is installing solar for on residential places right now. Okay, day in and day out. So I feel comfortable standing behind that number. And if you want to go with 550, I'm okay with that. In 3-4 years, it'll be right there where it needs to be because the prices are going to keep dropping. You know what I'm saying? The point is, when the incentives go away and those types of things, they are going to be replaced by the natural reduction in solar costs. And one could say that in the United States here, we have still a significant headroom to make in terms of soft costs, right? When you compare to other countries, we've been able to streamline. It's just the American way. We all have to do things our own way until we can all get past that and we figure out a more centralized, streamlined way. And we're comfortable with that too. We all shop on Amazon now and everything because it's just, that centralized thing is so much easier and better than in one way than going to your corner store, although I still love going to the corner store as well. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but it's...
Yeah, Wall Street Journal, where they got the numbers from.
Right, because that seems ridiculous. That seems so 2011 ago to me. That's how I do that. Sir, you have a question?
I was just going to say, don't look back, look forward. All you got to do is look at the trend.
Exactly.
Obvious. It's obvious.
Yeah.
Wall Street is looking back and giving you numbers that they're calculating based on, past data.
When
Let's look forward. I mean,
yeah. When I meet a complete stranger when we start talking about solar, I say, look, I don't know you from Adam. I said, but I'm not having a question that's going to say if you will go solar. I said it's just a matter of when. Because at some point the divergence in the lines are going to be so compelling for every single point. We all just have different trigger points, right? I mean, some are the early adopters, some are the middle adopters, some are the late adopters. It's just who we are and how we do it. And I mean, there was a time before none of us had a mobile phone. It's a smartphone, right? It was, but we all got on that at some point, and it's a value to us, and so we do it. And so that's kind of right. Sir.
I'm a businessman, that's why I got the solar.
Mm-hmm.
The only clients, the more you use, the more you save, the longer you have, the more it's worth.
Exactly.
And I think we can improve some of your numbers. Because we pay our utility bills with after-tax income, saving $1 better than
Right.
earning one.
Right.
So when you look, and also I don't think you're looking at a value of a mortgage deduction.
Right.
So actually you're ahead of the game the day you turn your system on, if you build it with the cost of the house. If you choose to finance it, you're still ahead of the game because you're paying with money you'll spend whether you do it or you don't.
Big bold letters, all capitals, amen, right? I mean, I don't have time to make a sophisticated calculator. That was just chainsaw, caveman math that I did there. But I kept it specifically because I'm like, most people, they see it, they can follow chalkboard kind of math. But I agree with you completely. There's much better performance in it. Now, what's not in there also is like insurance costs and those kinds of things. I did include maintenance and inverter replacement and those things. And, you know, they all kind of average out. The point is, you know, we have a wonderful opportunity, 500,000 installations in the country now. We're getting data streams from everywhere, and the integrity of the information and the quality is just going to improve with each passing month, day, week, year, right? So I'm on board with it. That's a great point. So, others, yes, sir.
The other thing with that calculation is you use 10 cents a kilowatt hour as an offset. There's an awful lot of people right now paying 6 to 8 cents a kilowatt hour.
And there's other people paying 12 cents, right? So that's my own house. I pay 10.3 cents. That's why I plugged it in here, right? I would have put my own 9.3 kilowatt array up there and could have done all that. So, but I'm seriously, 6K for the house, 3.4 for my Volt, and I drive 40 miles a day, which is 12,000 miles a year, 1.8 cents. That's how the math works out for me. So, but you're exactly right. I mean, people do, and the point is, so in Missouri, where the price of utilities is a little bit less than here, it's like 9 cents we use on average, and 10 cents, 11 cents. And yes, we've looked at some of the co-ops in Illinois, and yes, they do have 8 cents a kilowatt hour prices, but there's a co-op, like near where I live, that charges 12.5 cents, right? I mean, it all is a matter of how they want to do their thing. So here's what you do. You go talk to the 12.5 centers first. It makes great sense. They're on board. The next county says, what are they doing over there? And, you know, we can't blanket the whole state right away. We have to smartly target the ones that make the most sense and get on board. And then just another year or two, the numbers will change again. So, okay? Yes, ma'am.
Resale of your home. I mean, it's so hard to sell your house because there's 50 homes on the market for everyone.
So here's...
And I would think if you have 2 homes, like, who wouldn't buy one?
Right, so here's the example I use. Talking to someone, I say, okay, pick your favorite tract neighborhood. 2 identical homes, right? Identical, both for sale at the exact same time, both in the same condition. One has 6 kilowatts of solar on it. You're going to pay more or less for it? You're going to pay more for it, right? Because you bought your utilities as part of it, and it's rolled into your mortgage, right? And so...
People don't mind that if they can roll it in mortgage. It's a write-off.
Exactly.
10 years is more homes have solar. If you don't have it, everyone's not going to be able to...
Exactly. Exactly. The good news is it'll be so cheap to be able to put it on. But the point is, so I want to make the point, there's a data out there now, NREL and everybody's showing that the instant you install the solar on the house, the property value of the house goes up by 50 to 75% of the installation cost of that array because it has an income stream and value associated with it. So what I tell people is that, look, okay, you get 30% credit, plus other discount, now you're close to 50%. I said, if you're worried about having made a dumb decision, and that's everyone's big fear, right? Their neighbors, 2 months later, they're like, oh, it all fell apart, or the house collapsed and caught on fire, or whatever. I mean, you know, this worst case scenario, I said, put those fears aside. Because if you need to sell the house tomorrow, you're going to get every penny back out of that, right? And you will have left the home, reduce the carbon footprint, and you go buy your next house.
Downturn where it took 3.5 years to sell my house. My house was one.
Sorry.
4 out of 400 homes sold.
Wow. Right.
Waves. If you don't have that, you're in a very serious disadvantage.
Yeah.
You need to sell your home.
Sure, and we need to educate the realty industry. I mean, that's an obligation we have, right? Because they're really good at selling homes and that kind of stuff, but they understand value, they understand long-term investments, they understand the sense piece of it, and they know how to talk to home buyers and sellers. So we need to get, whether there's a professional realtor association here in Illinois or whatever, or even your local realtor, we all need to go talk to them, and make them understand this. Because once they get energized, look out. I mean, they're going to do the work for us.
On that note, I'm from the Department of Energy. We funded a tool that was developed at Sandia Labs called the PV Value Tool. It's for real estate appraisers, and they basically have gone through and developed a methodology so any real estate appraiser can tell you how much the value of your home is going to go up. And it's been validated with California sales data to show that the methodology equals what the value that you get when you sell that home. And you want to get your real estate appraisers here using that tool, because otherwise they'll sometimes assign a value of 0 to your array when you do that resale. Value tool, Sandia Labs tool. No, Sandia National Labs put that together, and they've been working with the Appraisal Institute that has a whole curriculum to train appraisers to learn how to use that, and the green addendum.
It's also done property tax.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. Oh, goodness. So, I mean, Illinois has a great set of conditions, a good context set. We just got to go that last tactical mile, right, and close the loop improve on the RPS and a few policy changes, and then you and your neighbors get to enjoy all the goodness of solar that we know. Sir, I'm watching the clock.
I was very pleased that you presented the why. The why is the central thing. And I'm wondering, how much can we rely on economic arguments, and how much can we continue to avoid the harder to deal with at an emotional level, at a societal level, climate change exigency demands that we reduce our carbon footprints by 80% in a couple of decades, and then maybe we won't go extinct in a few decades.
Right, so after I got over my deep funk about not having enough energy for my kids, then now I'm into the deep funk about, my kids are going to fry anyhow, right? Or freeze to death if you're in Chicago, because that's going to happen climate change, right? So notice, I really didn't mention climate change in my presentation. I did that on purpose, right? I mean, you all get it. I mean, this is like in our DNA now, right? So we've exhausted most of the early adopters, right? There's still a few left that didn't have the pennies maybe in the beginning stuff, but now it's economic, and they'll keep doing that. But now it becomes purely in almost an economic driver to get solar out there. And I've almost, in my mind, moved to the point, like, let's just sell solar on its economic value. And very, very serendipitously, right, with those exponential growth rates, back to Einstein, right, what's the greatest threat? Exponential growth. If we just let its normal, if we followed a trajectory similar to what flat panel TVs and smartphones and all that kind of stuff did, which I think solar is that technology that can do just that. And by the way, my kids, you know, I mean, they're just normal average kids. This is like completely a no-brainer for them, right? I mean, this is how they're brought up and how they think. So part of it is they come online, handing the baton or the guidon to them to run the charge or the charge, and you know, that's the exponential growth thing, right? You'll do, like, what do we say? We said as much solar in the last 18 months as the previous 30 years. So the next 20 years could be off the chart, potentially, and it might just all work. So, but we can't stop doing the other things that we need to do, but getting that storage capability online and doing those things. And the beautiful part is, with a free market capitalist system, right? There are people out there that can smell a buck that say, if I create the super grid storage or home storage unit of the future, I can benefit myself as well as benefit the world, right? And this is what NRG and all these other guys are doing. They're saying, wow, the light bulb's on. Let's move out and not delay. So, I didn't get a correct answer to your question, but it's just. Okay, how's our time? We need to knock it off? Okay, sounds good. All right. Again, thank you, everybody. This has been a great day.
So the morning breakout sessions start at 10:45 in a half hour. Please take this time to network, visit exhibitors, and go out there with your why questions. Okay?